Welcome everyone to Mango Magic. 30 plus CEOs from industry leading sales and marketing organizations doing 20-minute bits on practical sales and marketing tips we can apply today to get value tomorrow. We're kicking things off today with the amazing Kieran McGuigan, who is my first ever sales mentor back from my early 20s, who taught me the definition of sales, helping customers make better buying decisions. Doesn't matter if they'll buy from you today. If you keep helping people make better buying decisions, they will be a customer eventually. And I still use that definition today. So no better person to start things off with today on our 6-year anniversary than Kieran McGuigan. Kieran, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
It's my pleasure, Isaac. I'm looking forward to it.
Mate, there are quite a lot of people who might not have met you yet, or they know a little bit about you. Maybe if you could introduce yourself, tell us who you are and why do you do what you do?
Well, it's sort of I'm a typical accidental salesperson. So about 36 years ago, I arrived in Australia from various places, traveled the world, etc., but originally from Ireland. And I found that the one thing I could do that was different over here was I could talk. Okay, so in my first sales job ever, which was at News Limited, as a commission-only sales guy. So you only got 20% of what you sold. If you didn't sell, you didn't get anything. So it was great in some respects, but I really learned my bones, so to speak, of the sales profession back then. This is I'm so old that this is before mobile phones, before emails, before computers. I mean, and I know, wow, yeah, it's not possible, is it? But it is. And so I got a lot of experience from burning shoe leather and knocking on doors.
There you go. Amazing. So the theme of the day is something practical we can apply today and get value tomorrow. Is there something you learned when you were doing the door-to-door that you're still doing today that you could get value from tomorrow?
Yeah, look, this is probably my key point. And I would say for those of you who are watching, if you haven't got a pen, get yourself a pen and start writing things down. Too many people just record things or go to a training program and think that, oh yeah, I've been there, I've done that, but that's not the same thing, right? The same thing is doing the behavior, and to do that you need to write it down or have some way of remembering what we discuss. And so I don't have a lot of time to squeeze a lot of value in, and gets back to that point that Isaac mentioned about the reason you get out of bed in the morning. If the reason you get out of bed in the morning is to help other people, I don't care what industry you're in, first of all, you're going to enjoy what you're doing and people will want to talk to you. But if the reason you're getting up every day is to sell things, right? Okay, is to push products on people and just flog stuff, then yeah, you're going to have a really hard time for the rest of your life, right? If you want to stay in this business. So if you're running the business, running the sales team, or if you're running yourself as the sales team, the first thing you've got to do is find some sort of center of gravity about why you do what you do. And most salespeople, in my experience, are accidental. No one, for those of you who've got children, they're sitting around the table and saying, well, what did you do at school today? Very few of your children, and I'm guessing most of you probably wouldn't want to hear this from your children, is they're going to say, oh yeah, Dad, we talked about what we want to be when we grow up, and I said I wanted to be a salesperson. So most parents are going to look at the person, their kid, and say, I think you can do better. And that's sort of wrong in the sense that sales is one of the most noble professions in the world if you're doing it for the right reasons and you're truly helping. And by the way, it's a lot easier when you do it from that perspective. It's a lot easier to qualify customers. It's a lot easier to be genuine because you are being genuine. So it gets back to that, help people make better buying decisions. And sometimes that means buying your competitor's product. Okay, there's a tough one for a lot of people. If your product isn't good enough for the specs to do the job they want, and you haven't uncovered those needs, if you like, then you need to shake the tree a little bit and interrupt them. And I'll talk about that as well a little bit later.
Yeah, that might have been the reason why you ended up being the first mentor that I got. But when I first got into sales, like I had done a bunch of different jobs, loads of different things, but it hit me like within the first week. It's like I couldn't believe I could get paid to talk to people, right? And it's like fun and enjoyable, and you're having a great old time. At the time, we were signing people up to do like charity subscriptions and things. But that purpose and that initiative, that sudden realization that this is what I actually enjoy doing, enjoy getting out of bed doing, is why I think I've been able to do quite a lot of stuff in the space. But you're right, a lot of people get into it for the wrong reasons, which leads to the typical car salesperson type image that a lot of people have of salespeople. So it's
well, if you're selling a secondhand car, it's great if you're truly interested in your customer driving away with a solution that's going to help them, right? But if you're interested in just moving the vehicle and clipping the ticket, look, you might get away with it, but you're not going to build a repeat customer base of people who are coming back to you, and of people who want to choose you. One of the questions that one of my team were asking earlier was, how do you differentiate between, say, when everything's equal, your price is the same, your product's the same, it's a generic beige solution, right? It's very hard to differentiate. You can get exactly the same product from here. In fact, some of your competitors could get it cheaper, right? So you say, well, how do I sell that? Well, this is where the salesperson forgets that you're part of the solution. The thing that your competitors can't get, the thing that your customers can't get, is you. Okay, so you're part of the solution. So the value that you bring to the table in terms of your dialogue with your customers, in terms of your relationship, the value you can bring in, and I'm not just referring to the product you're selling, I'm talking about the value that you bring in your contact. I mean, one of the biggest problems that most salespeople have is they go, okay, I've started a new job, I've rang everybody in my territory, and I've introduced myself. What do I do next? Yeah, and they go, right, I'll ring them again in 2 weeks' time and say, hey, it's me again. I was just wondering if there's anything happening. And they go, right, well, this job sucks. And I'm like, I've got nothing to say. But really what they should be doing is when they have a reason to make contact, is think about it from the customer's point of view. What is it that I can bring to the customer in that 15, 20, 30 seconds of the call that's going to surprise them, and they're going to go, oh yeah, I didn't know that, or that's useful, and so that they will welcome your approach, welcome your interruption, welcome the fact that they're busy doing something else. When the phone rings, they don't want to take your call. It's I've got one of the reasons I was happy to do this, and you were keen to promote it because it's right here, which is like, I wrote that 20 years ago on a bus, right?
Still have a copy.
I was nuts, right? So 45 minutes a day going in, 45 minutes going out to and from work. I used to sit and write little sales tips, and did that for a year or so. And at the end of the year, stuck them all into one volume and became the world's best sales tips. And I've sold 10,000 of those suckers, right? 10,000, that's a lot of books. And I've got a new one coming out, in hopefully by the end of this month, it should be fully published, called Interruption Selling, right? And now this is about this whole premise, and I'll give you the guts of it right here, is that most salespeople do not understand what their core function is, right? If you surveyed most salespeople and said to them, okay, so what's your core function? Most of the answers I get back when I'm running seminars or workshops or anything like that is, oh, I'm engaging with the customer, finding their needs, is bringing better solutions, all this sort of stuff. That's not their core function. As a new business development salesperson, and right now, if you're in account management, and if you're in all sorts of other sales support, and you're in this, understand this, your function for the next 4, 5, 6 years is going to be new business, because everybody wants new business. I haven't met a business owner yet who doesn't want new business. But the number one thing is that they don't understand is that their job is speaking to strangers, right? Yeah, that's their core function, is to talk to strangers. And the paradox is that since they were 2, 3 years old, their parents have been telling them, you know, whatever you do, you don't speak to any strangers, right? And suddenly then when they're about 19, 20 years old in their first job, their core function is speaking to strangers. And they begin thinking, someday I won't have to do this. Please, God, I won't have to be cold calling anymore. I won't have to be going to networking events and introducing myself and all. So there's this inherent friction here between the person who you are inside truly doesn't want to speak to strangers, and yet your core of your job is just doing that. So getting back and understanding back to the basics of understanding that if I'm your sales manager, the one thing I want to know, okay, between you and everybody else, if I'm going to hire you, I want to hire you because, well, in my business, you don't have any choice. As you know, Isaac, it's like you're in the swimming pool, you're going to get wet. It's just the way it is. But if for other salespeople who are out there, you got to say, well, okay, if that's your core function, the next thing, how do you do it in a way that you feel comfortable making those calls or those initial approaches? And please don't send me LinkedIn approaches. Hey, I want to link in and just say hi, because I don't want to say hi, and I don't want to get an offer from you 2 days later. I want to speak to a human being, right, who can actually understand what I'm trying to do and work with me on that. And that's the price of entry.
So I mean, I hear the same thing from, even junior salespeople and really experienced salespeople. It is that nerve-wracking, jump out of your comfort zone to pick up the phone and call. And I remember from a lot of your previous speeches, it was just like, just pick up the phone. Like it was like a very, just pick up the phone and go. And you do that in your training sessions. But maybe if there are some practical ways that people could think, oh, this is an opener I could use, or maybe this is a question that I could ask. This could maybe make people feel a bit more comfortable. So what would be your favorite opener or favorite question?
Well, there are lots, and they are, well, that, and I didn't get on this to push the book, right? But a lot of them are in that book. Or I've got an online training course. There's lots of different links that I'm sure, Isaac, you'll flick through to people that where they can download stuff and it's free, etc. But the one thing I used to, when I was a lot younger, I used to do a lot of judo, and the judo is really the art of balance in combat. So you use your opponent's weight to throw them or to push them to one side and get an ippon or win that particular bout. And when you make an outreach call and you're speaking to, and you've got maybe 10, 15 seconds, right? I've got a number of methodologies, but without turning this into a detailed training session, because that would take a couple of hours. The first thing is, what can I say, okay, that's going to get you to go, oh, that's interesting. And so rather than asking, why don't I give you something? So if I make a cold call to a stranger, someone I've never spoken to before, then I'm going to say, look, hey, John, thanks for taking my call, insert name here. And I don't believe in scripts. So I'm calling into an industry set. And so, look, thanks for taking the call. Look, the reason I wanted to speak with you is that we've been doing a lot of work with your industry, helping people there. And I'm doing a bit of a quick outreach or a survey. I'm thinking about putting together a white paper or a piece for one of the local newspapers or business gazettes or online. I'm doing a bit of research in that. And what do you see as the top 3 or 4 challenges in whatever their industry is? And get them talking about what's going on in their world, and thank them and ask them if you give me, have I got permission to use that, etc. Right now, you've got a reason to call them back in a week's time. When you gather all that information, and now you find out that 60% of them think this, 20% think that, 10% think the other, you can ring them, contact them. They'll take your call and say, look, hey, thank you for that. That was really valuable. I found that you one of your priorities wasn't the same as everyone else. Do you mind if I ask you why that was? Now, I haven't, thus far, I'm not talking about my product or my service or anything to do with me. I'm introducing myself by being client-centric. I'm having a conversation with a stranger and making that stranger more familiar with who I am and building trust. So that there's a simple way.
I like it. So the proof that you're doing some research, what are these kind of key challenges?
Yeah.
Great. Would love to come back to you. Come back to them with even more research. Now you're building on their case. You haven't talked about you at all yet.
No.
You're talking about
No.
building
And
their.
this is, so I would say, look, there's too many sales professionals out there who are not, who actually aren't interested or have never done their due diligence in terms of their own skill set. Maybe they've done 1 or 2 training programs, but they haven't read any book. I mean, I just ran it before this session started. I wanted to sort of say I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. When I wrote a couple of my first books, I always go back and read the books previous authors read. So the greats of the sales industry, and I buy their. I go out and I buy their books, right? And I get these things. There's a couple of these are over 100 years old, right? You buy them in op shops and things like this. They're like written in letterpress for old school sales tips, and I learned from those guys. So get interested in what your profession is. I mean, there's no other profession in the world you get away with just going, I don't know, I just make it up from time to time and wait for someone to come along and give me a hard time. You wait for your sales manager to tell you what you should be doing, whereas you should be doing it yourself.
So to the old school question, so you pick up the phone, you're calling an Eskimo, and you've got a bunch of ice to sell. What do you say?
Well, the first thing is that if you think about why is the Eskimo going to buy ice from you, right? And there it goes back to the point I was making earlier. The reason they're going to buy ice from you is because of you. It's not your ice is the same as everybody else's. Okay. Now you can try and beat them on price and say we've got the cheapest ice in the world. It's delivery's better, etc., etc., etc. You can win points in that, but your competitors can always beat you in that as well. And having a race to the bottom is not a good race to win, right? Because you might have the number 1 in volume, but you'll be the number 1 who's going to go bust first. So the reason why the Eskimo is going to choose you is because of you. So you've got to understand what is it about you personally. Now that can be your accent, your tone of voice, your inflection, the way you present, how you engage. It could be a number of things, but it's you. And you are the product in that particular instance.
You're applying that same theory you just did. So, hey, I'm working with a lot of Eskimos, and I've been doing some research on other Eskimos. And then, can you let me know some of the challenges, whatever, and I'll come back to you with research.
Yeah, and almost sort of step back from the temptation to sell, right? It's life's so much easier when customers buy from you, right? Now think about it this way: if I opened a restaurant, okay, a pizza shop, okay, just down the road. I want to find customers for my pizza, right? The first thing I need, if I'm looking at my target market, is going to be people who are hungry, okay? Many moons ago, I worked for Coca-Cola as a creative, and I was talking to one of the marketing guys, and I said, what's your market? And he said, everyone with a mouth, okay? Which I thought that's a pretty big market. But if you're selling pizza, you're looking at or any sort of food type, you're looking for people who are hungry. Then the subset of that are going to be people who like maybe say Italian food. Then the subset of that are going to be people who like Italian food and like pizza. And then the subset of that is going to be people who, for whatever reason, are going to select you because of locality, because of price, or whatever. But you sort of define your market, and then you go after them and position your solution for them to buy, and then just get out there and communicate.
Yeah, I love that. So, I mean, the more niche and more subset you get, that's the exact same activity that you mentioned is even more relevant. If somebody calls you up and they say, I'm speaking with this subset of this subset of this subset, doing some research on this piece, would love to hear the challenges. Kieran, it is always a pleasure and never long enough, mate. I wish we had
was that 20 minutes? Was that the time? Oh,
Nine,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So
Well,
I want to make sure that people can see this book, because I'm definitely going to be buying that first copy. I still travel, of all the places that I've traveled everywhere. It's the only book that I carry with me, The World's Best Sales Tips by Kieran. You're a good man.
Yeah. You're warming my heart, buddy. Look, I'll put together some sort of like super duper special offer for like books, courses, things like that. If people want to buy them, as always, if people have got questions after the fact, just flick them on to me and I'll redirect them in some way, because I'm genuinely interested in helping the sales profession. Okay, so that's what gets me out of bed in the morning, is helping other salespeople sell. Okay.